Hi, everybody. I'm Judy, the YouTube lawyer, here this evening with another live stream legal show. Today, our special guest is attorney Elysia Prendergast-Jones, who is a supervising attorney at Legal Aid in Raleigh. She's also a graduate of North Carolina Central University's law school. So let's add her to the screen. Hi, Elysia. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sure. Would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about your background first?
Sure. What would you like to know?
Oh, okay. Well, where did you grow up? And, are you the first lawyer in your family?
Yes, sure. I grew up in New York and then moved to South Carolina, then went to law school in North Carolina. I am the first lawyer in my family, but I am not the first person that went to college. I come from a wealth of knowledge in my family, doctors and everything else. My mom, she went to school for microbiology and math, so I can't actually compete with any of that stuff. But yeah, first lawyer, excited about that.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah, and you were telling me about your family background. It just seemed like it was like some model United Nations.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let me see if I can remember. You said your mother is originally from Jamaica, and she is Irish and Jamaican and West Indian. And
so, yeah, my mom's dad was born in Ireland, and he met my grandmother in Jamaica. So my grandmother was Jamaican and Western Indian. So she was born in Jamaica. My dad is Italian and Black, and he was born in New York. And that's where I was born. So I was just a mixture of all of that. And people always just assume I'm whatever. And I let them assume whatever. It doesn't really matter.
as long as they're nice to you and they're like, oh, you look like my relative or whatever, or you look like my friend or whatever. So have you been back to visit any of those countries that your ancestors or parents came from?
No, I do want to. I went to school in Spain in college, and I visited Portugal and some other places, but I haven't been to where they're from, which is sad. But yeah.
Oh, do you speak Spanish?
A little. Not, I read it way more than I can speak it.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so so you went to college in South Carolina, right?
Yeah, that's where I went for undergrad and both of my masters.
Oh, okay. And which college was it?
I went to Coker College for undergrad, and then I went to Webster University for my master's.
I see. And so did you go straight to law school after you got your master's degrees, or did you work for a while before you went to law school?
So I did both. I worked as a teacher and I went to law school. It's a mix of both. Yeah. I got my first master's first, and then I went to law school. Then I went back and got my second MBA. Then I finished law school.
Wow, that's amazing. A lot of school. So what kind of teacher were you?
I did curriculum assistance and worked with autistic children. So this is my first master's is in counseling. So I worked with students that needed special assistance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting job. Did you find it rewarding or was it difficult?
I worked with middle school students. It was difficult. I like students, but I know that being a teacher takes a special gift that is probably not for me. I think lawyering is probably where my passion lies. I commend teachers. I love my child's teacher and her principal and everybody else. And I volunteered at schools since I had a kid, but I just don't think that it was for me. So I only did it for 2 years.
I see. Well, Tony has a question in regards to your work with autistic children. Did you do ABA or applied behavioral analysis?
So I worked, I did the work that I did actually was a little different. I did what was like one-on-one working with students. So where I had to work with students with behavioral plans. So it didn't call for, excuse me, any of that. Um, I had to work with students that had behavior plans and that were pulled out of classes and worked with them one-on-one and taught them at a little lower level. Uh, so I guess that's a little bit different than counseling or any of that.
Mhm.
If that's
I
not
see.
answering the question. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So, what made you decide to go to law school then, and then also at NC Central?
I think I went to Central following my cousin. He went as an undergrad, and I just wanted to go to Central. I'm not sure. And I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I think since I was 3, when I stopped wanting to be a doctor, I was sick growing up, and I just got tired of doctors.
Mhm.
So I changed my mind and wanted to be a lawyer. So I don't know. I didn't know what lawyers were, but I knew that just was my path in life. And it just became my personality.
Mhm.
So I figured everything out later.
I see. And were you already living in the Raleigh-Durham area when you got into Central, or did you move here because of law school?
I lived up here for a little while before I went to Central.
Mhm. Oh, okay. So you were able to pay in-state tuition then?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was
Um,
thinking, how did you pay for all this? I mean, you got your undergrad, you got 2 master's degree and a law degree, so did you do a lot of student loans or have family support or
I did a
scholar
lot of student loans, but undergrad, actually, I went to a private school and I got mostly scholarships and grants for that. And my mom paid for a good bit of that, luckily. But the rest was student loans. So it's difficult. Student loans are a really sad thing in life.
Yeah, do you still have student loans?
I have so many student loans. The man at the car dealership laughed one day and he was like, "It's a second mortgage." And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, it wasn't only funny to him.
Oh, well, it's not really that funny if you're the one living with it and you have to pay every month. So, but what about, public interest loan forgiveness? Do you qualify for that since you work
So
for legal aid?
I, interestingly, I don't know if you saw like the new change, but because my loans were under a different lender at first, when I first started legal aid, I didn't realize that none of them qualified because I had to change them all under a new lender. And because they weren't, some of them qualified and some of them didn't. So they didn't actually let them qualify because only
Oh,
part of them qualified. So now I think with the change, I can go back and see if they qualified from when I first started legal aid, but
mhm.
they do now. However, having to consolidate them made my interest rates go up and do
Oh,
that. So it was kind of crazy. But it's kind of a tricky mixed bag that they put you in with that, where certain lenders qualify and certain lenders don't.
oh.
So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it does sound like it's very complicated and you have to follow, read all the fine print and there are so many rules and stuff. I mean, who can really understand that? Yeah. Was there some sort of financial aid office at your law school that could help explain this to the students?
I mean, if they did, they didn't explain it to me, but
Oh,
I don't know.
wow. Okay. Well, I hope you can eventually pay off your loans then, because I mean, people always say that, oh, if you work for a certain number of years, then you could get your loans forgiven if you're working for the government or working for a nonprofit legal organization. But I guess that's not always true for everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
it's 10 years, but some of those years for me didn't even qualify. So even though I've worked for legal aid for now a few years, but even the first few years didn't qualify because I didn't even know that some of those loans, those years didn't qualify until I reconsolidated those loans. And now with the change of the law, maybe I can go back and get credit for those years, but I don't know. It's still such a tricky bag. And that's why you see so many people didn't qualify for the public loan forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of difficult because you do pick positions like this, and not necessarily for the loan forgiveness, but because of the work that you do, it's so rewarding in other ways. But it does come with those issues of, you don't get the higher pay so that you can pay those student loans off quicker. But it's supposed to have that benefit at the end. And then when you don't get that benefit at the end, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So like when people think that, you're a lawyer and you have this glamorous life, it's not always like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a
Yeah,
lawyer. Yeah.
that's what my channel is here for, to dispel that myth, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're a lawyer and you have a comfortable life, but it's not glamorous.
Yeah. I mean, people think that, oh yeah, all the lawyers make, at least $200,000 to start, and then you become partner and you're making millions and whatever, didn't happen for me. So yeah. So let's take a look over here. We have Serena. Hi, Serena. She says, I'm a New Yorker too, and I'm still here. I wonder why you decided to do an MBA while doing your JD. I'm curious what drove you to North Carolina. Thanks.
Thanks. So I thought I've always wanted to do international corporate law, which was what I was really interested in. And I thought that having an MBA would be great. I loved business. My mom did business. So that's why I wanted to do an MBA. And you always have to have a plan B and C if plan A never works out. So my MBA was always a plan B and C. However, it really does help me in other things. I'm a supervising attorney, and I've had my own business, and I did business law for a little while. So it does help in other aspects of getting my life together, getting my business together when I did that. And those aspects of how do I supervise my staff and coming up with different things with that. So that was the reason I did my MBA. Now, it helps in other aspects. And do I suggest other people do it? I don't know. I think that everybody's path is unique. It was just why I chose to do it. And I came to North Carolina because family, and I actually love it.
Yeah, that's great. And so similarly, Christy is asking, did you do a dual degree program at Central?
So Central does have a dual degree program, but I did not do that one.
Okay, I see. Okay, yeah. So let's move on to talk about, what kind of work do you do as a legal aid attorney? I'm assuming there are different areas that certain attorneys are in charge of, but what kind of cases have you handled?
Yeah. So I actually do the family law and domestic violence cases, and I'm over that unit in our Raleigh office. So I do everything in family law. We do a lot of domestic violence cases. So that's our rapid cases. We do that every day. So in Wake County, there's cases every day. We also do Johnston County. Johnston County has it once a week on Fridays. We also do a lot of family law cases. And I know that's unique. People don't think that we do other cases. We don't do it regularly. We do it on special basis because we can't handle the caseload for tons of cases that come in. But there are special cases that we do, custody cases. We do equitable distribution cases. We don't do it a ton. We've done adoption cases. We've done TPR cases, termination of parental rights. But, very unique circumstances. We do appeal cases.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Interestingly, I was on a team that had 2 appeals that came out last year that was published. So And our legal aid attorneys do a ton of appeals.
Hmm.
We
And
do. Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Aren't there people who also do things like bankruptcy or foreclosure or landlord-tenant cases too?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to mention that our office does. We have projects that do bankruptcy, housing. Yeah, we have projects that do foreclosure. We do Medicaid. They also have the people that help with helping you pick a plan for Medicaid.
Oh, that's
So
great.
they offer a wealth of services. Even in our office, offers a wealth of services. Consumer cases. I used to do consumer cases,
Mhm.
unemployment benefit cases. I've even done expungement cases. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's a lot.
we can do a little bit of everything. I've done some of the housing cases. I used to teach that in expungement and different things like that. But right now, I really do family law, but I've worked on other cases, and since we work as a unit, our whole office can work together on different cases, and we sometimes get on different cases and do it. And we're a civil law firm, so we barely get into criminal. Expungements is where we do it, but it's you know every once in a while you'll see us walking around a criminal courtroom for little
Oh,
things, limited things.
wow. It seems like you've learned to do so many different areas of law. And
Mhm.
is it all for low-income people? Because I know for domestic violence, there's no income limit,
Correct.
right?
Yes. So for domestic violence, because domestic violence are grant funded cases, there isn't an income limit. And we want to be able to help everyone and expel the myth that domestic violence is only geared to one population. Domestic violence is geared to everyone. And I'm wearing purple because Domestic Violence Month is this
Mhm.
month, October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And purple is our color. My nails are purple.
Oh,
Um,
great. Cool.
but yes, so we handle it for everyone. And there's guidelines and limits for everything else that we do.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So Tony is asking how are domestic violence cases handled? What resources are available? No, they don't provide a hotel for the victim. I mean, I know that much, right? Like nobody gets a free
So
hotel. Yeah.
we
But
don't.
maybe somebody gets shipped off to jail. They get to have a free night in jail. Yeah.
We don't provide the hotels. We do work with a lot of shelters and agencies that we connect them to so that we can see if they can provide services. So there's a lot of agencies, like the agency that I work with, Interact in Wake County and Harbor in Johnson County, can find shelter, temporary shelter for victims or weak home survivors, because if you made it out, then you're a survivor. Um, Domestic violence, people can file for a domestic violence restraining order at the courthouse, some in Wake County, and there's you'd have to go and file at the courthouse. We don't have magistrate domestic violence filing, so you'd have to do it Monday through Friday. However, many counties do have it where you can go to weekends and file through a magistrate a domestic violence protective order, and then go back and file with a judge if it's an emergency over a weekend. Johnson, I believe, has it. I don't think so, but like Harnett County, there's a few counties that do have that. And then you can get one of those through a magistrate and then go back and get it through a judge. So then you can get connected with one of our agencies. And Legal Aid is a statewide organization. We also have PISCA, which is in the mountains. So if you can't get connected with Legal Aid, PISCA can help you as well.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So definitely, I think I explained it at one of our previous live streams, but first a person files a petition to try to get a protective order, and then they are immediately or pretty quickly seen in front of a judge. It's called an ex parte hearing where the other side isn't there. And if the judge sort of, believes you that you have a plausible case, then they will give you a temporary ex parte order and then tell you to come back to court again within 10 days. And that's where the defendant has the right to show up and defend him or herself and could potentially bring an attorney. And then you have your real hearing to see if a protective order is warranted. So I hope that's a quick summary, right?
Yeah, that's
we
correct.
do this all the time. So yeah, and definitely, child protective services, like child abuse, that's like a totally different court system, right? It's in the juvenile courts, or what do they call it again?
It's
Neglect.
Abuse, neglect, and dependency court. Unless they are part of the cases. So like in Wake County, if there's an aspect of child abuse in the domestic violence case, then they'll be called in to investigate a domestic violence part of the case. So they'll still be a part of it, but it won't be taken into that courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Legal aid, they don't charge, right? I mean, it's from the government, right? The government allocates a budget, I think.
Correct. So legal aid actually has grants, and we are government funded and grant funded. So we don't charge for any services. And there are times that people pay, but they don't pay legal aid attorneys. Sometimes you would have to pay like a bond to the court. So for like housing cases, there are times that you have to pay a rent bond, but that goes to the court. That doesn't ever go to the legal aid attorney. There are times that, like for bankruptcy, you have to pay the bankruptcy plan, but that would go to the court. Again, never to the legal aid attorney. So legal aid doesn't charge for any of their services.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really nice. Yeah. So typically they reach out to legal aid because they can't afford a private attorney. And so I can't remember what the income requirement is. Is it less than maybe like 20 something thousand a year income? And then they qualify?
No, it's on a scale. So it's 100 and I think it's 125%, but it changes. So it's a scale depending on your family size and your income and a few factors.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you. And what made you choose family law or domestic violence cases?
Well, I don't know. I have a calling for it, I guess. And I always said that I really didn't want to get into the messiness of people's lives. Before I went into law school, I was like, the one thing I don't want to do is family law. And
well, now look at you. Every day.
I do. But I really love it. Like, I really love helping people. I love, it's rewarding. I mean, it's really difficult. It's hard. You don't turn it off at night, and there's sometimes that you just want to turn things off, and contract work and things of that nature you can turn off, but you really can't turn off people's lives. But I love it, and I think my background blends really well with it. I've been working with this population since I've been in high school. I volunteered at domestic violence shelters in high school. I did again in college. I worked as a counselor in college, and when I was getting my master's, I also worked in the homes where children were sent and did all of that. So I think it was just a natural progression.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Franklin is a law student, I think. So he wants to know, what do you enjoy most about working at a not-for-profit?
So nonprofits have a lot of benefits that I love, such as not being able to charge clients. There's so many people out here that need the services and for whatever reason can't afford the same services. They deserve to have representation in court and have a zealous lawyer represent them. And I used to, when I worked in, private firms or worked on my own, I would always try to discount services so much that I was just giving away services. So now I get to do that. I get to work for these people and give them that same service that those people deserve. And they get, a top-notch lawyer because our lawyers are great litigators. We have great training and we get to fight every day for these clients. And I don't have to charge them anything. And I really appreciate that. And that's the privilege that I get for working at a nonprofit.
Yeah, so he thanks you for doing that. What are the pros of working? Well, I guess you touched on it, that you don't have to demand money from everybody, like, hey, you need to pay me a big retainer if you're going to hire me, right?
Yeah, it's not as stressful as having to deal with that because, I think that is really difficult, having to weed out people for that. But it also gets difficult too, where people feel like sometimes they don't get a benefit because they're not paying for their attorney. But I will tell you that when we're hiring people, we hire really zealous, really top-notch attorneys, people that want to work, people that you really want to work for you. When you see legal aid attorneys in the courtroom, people count them out because they think that, hey, I didn't pay for this attorney or something like that. But what people don't realize are, like, those attorneys are always in the courtroom. They're true litigators. You don't have the opportunity to take a break because we have constant caseloads, just like PDs and, ADAs. Your caseloads never stop. You don't get the opportunity to say no to many people. And you have to constantly go. So you're always practicing, you're always striving, you're always preparing, you're always being the best. You're always learning your law, you're always preparing.
Yeah.
So,
That is so true because, as a private practice attorney, I might go to domestic violence court like once a month at most. But, whereas the legal aid attorneys, every time I'm there in the courthouse, I see them, they're there, 5 days a week or whatever. It could be 4 days a week at the least. Yeah. So you've seen it all, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, on that note, I know we have a lot of questions out there, so hopefully we can get to them. But since you touched on it, like, how can somebody maximize their chances of getting a job at a nonprofit or at legal aid?
Sure. So one of the things that I tell people is to intern. I have a lot of interns, and when you do an internship, you need to take that internship seriously too, because when we assess interns, I had one person that applied for an internship and they were like, oh, well, you just serve people and you don't charge for services, and that's all I need to know about you. That is not all you need to know. Don't apply.
What?
Because
Rude.
you obviously didn't do any research
Yeah.
on us at all. And, when you're choosing us, we're choosing you as well. But research us, volunteer, do all of those things, because those are the ways that you get in the door. And then, make your pathway to us, get connected, do those little things. Sorry, my child. Do those little things and get to know people in your community. Volunteer, because those are your steps, your pathways. And then, make those connections. But those connections broaden you, because think about it. You're in the courtroom. We're a litigation firm. And, you know, just because you're here at Legal Aid doesn't mean that this is your end, because, you know, this could be your pathway to start. This can be your pathway to a great future. You know, you're in front of attorneys every day. You're in front of judges. You're in front of the community. So it's your pathway to a lot of other things as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely doing volunteer work, helping to serve, more underprivileged communities, working with kids, those are all things to kind of help make your resume look better, to show that you're a well-rounded person that really cares about helping other people. I think that would also help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Tony asks, what's the most severe penalty or judgment that can be applied? Well, that's kind of hard to say because, well, I mean, people could potentially be put in jail because, if you violate a child custody order, you violate a judge's order, then I have seen some judges put people in jail for that, or have your kids taken away. I think that's a pretty severe penalty, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
It's not
that's
just money. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. How has the pandemic impacted your practice area?
so the pandemic has impacted, I think, everyone in the way practice court works. I think with everything. I mean, you have to change and adapt. Like, we went through virtual court and having to figure out how that works and how to help people. We've had to change how we practice, how we could help survivors that were still with their abusers. Um, we had to make ways for people to still file in their homes. So we came up with ways to help people file virtually and come up with plans and work with the court system of how we all can interconnect as a team, legal aid and the court system and the agencies to be able to build systems and connections for survivors to be able to do that. So it's changed, but I think it also impacted how resilient people are and how when things change, everyone changes.
Yeah, that's right. Are you doing more of the intake over the phone or through Zoom or WebEx now?
Yeah, so we don't really do a lot of in person. We do mostly phone calls, but it's adapted, and now we're able to serve so many more people because we're just quicker and really fast and doing it. But I think it's working.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. And Serena's other question is, can you please share what life was like during law school and business school separately? What can students from humble families do to lessen debts coming out of law school?
Sure. So for me, law school was really hard. It was, I was on my own a lot. It was, I, law school wasn't it wasn't pleasant for me at first. I was on my own, depressed and everything.
Oh,
So just to let you know, it's not something that you will take on and expect it to go something smoothly. I would always take on law school as something that you really want to do and not something that you would do just because. I don't know what you say, Judy, but I really feel like it's something that you do as a passion. And I was really frugal and stream. And the reason that I have law school debts and business school debts is because the school, like the schools that I went to with other things were private schools. So that's why I have higher debts. It's because like my master's and both of those were from private schools. And I would really be cautious about what you do. Like I really wasn't flashy. I didn't do much. I didn't go out a lot. I wouldn't wouldn't I would be really just careful with your finances. And I did that. I mean, do what you can with borrowing books and borrowing things, and you can be really lean on your finances. And that's not the reason why I have a lot of student debt. It's just the schools are really expensive for the masters. And that's where a chunk of my debts came from. So I would just be really cautious about what it is that you need. Did I need 2 masters? I don't know. Does it benefit me now? Maybe, maybe not. Does it benefit me in the long run? I hope so. Do I feel as a rounder person, and would I do it all over again? I guess I probably would. I used to sit and think about it, and it was like, maybe I shouldn't have done this. And there were times that I think, is it worth it? Should I have gone to law school? And all of that. And I used to sit and think, maybe I should have been an engineer or a doctor, all these other paths in life. But actually, when I look at the results of the families that I've helped, I guess it was worth it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And was business school any easier compared to law school?
It wasn't easier because I went to business school years after I've had math.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really interesting. I will say the first few classes were really difficult because you have to change your mindset and adapt. But at the end, it was fun. I was learning to run a business. I was feeling like, hey, I can go out and start like this empire and change the world. So then it was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, let me go be a YouTube business worker or something, but
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So Ifan asks, can you talk about your client or intake process? How do you select which clients to help? So you mentioned that earlier, that it's done through the phone now.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And do you get to choose who you want to help? Do you turn away people?
So we don't necessarily turn away people that we can help. We give people services even if they're not legal services. So we'll give them advice unless it's a conflict or something. But if we can take them, if we have the capacity to take them, sometimes we're just out of capacity. We have a certain amount of client attorneys that can handle a certain amount of cases. I mean, sometimes we get 20 cases and we have one attorney, and those 20 cases come in the day before or 2 days before. We just can't prep for all of those cases 2 days before. So we'll get as many cases as we can, and we try our best to serve as many clients as we can. But we try to give every client the services that we can. Sometimes it's advice because that's the service that we feel that we can give that client. And even advice is a valuable service because a lot of people don't realize that people pay for advice. Advice goes for $200, $500.
Yeah.
So
Or even just seeing a therapist.
yes.
Most people have to pay out of pocket to see a therapist.
Yeah, so I mean, we balance it very uniquely. We try our best to serve as many people as we can and do what we can. And if the client, if the case warrants us to go to court, we do the best that we can and serve as many. But we are very limited with the amount of attorneys we have, and we are always, overfilled with the capacity of what we can serve.
Mm-hmm. I see. So she asks, what do you do to balance your family and legal career as a female attorney?
That is very difficult because I work, gosh, usually anywhere between 60 to 80 hours a week.
Wow,
And
really?
yeah,
Do you have to, or could
I
you just
don't
say no?
I don't have to, but it's just because, my job is just always going. People are always in crisis mode.
Mhm.
And I have a team. I have a lot of people that's in my team. I have people that are just always counting on something. And if one of my attorneys can't handle a case or if they need help, I don't say no, even if it's 7 o'clock at night. I want to be available to them.
Wow.
So I do. I check my emails whenever I work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I also do carpool. So
But you're working while you're in the carpool, right?
yeah. So I'm like checking my emails and driving my kid to school, and I'm in carpool and I'm doing all of that, and I do meetings when I'm doing all of that. So I balance, and I've learned with the pandemic, hey, I have to do double duty. So while I work halfway in the office and half at home lately, what I do is while I'm on a meeting, I cook. If I don't have to have my camera on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm going to cook dinner and I'm going to be on this meeting at the same time. And that's how I've learned to balance it. And then I run the court and I do all of those things. And then I run back and do the stuff that I need to do. But before, when I used to do it, it's like when my child was younger, I would work in the morning, get her ready to school, work in the middle of the day, do all of those things, volunteer at her school as much as I could, volunteer everywhere else, and then work at night, do all those little things that you can and just try to fit it in as much. But it doesn't give you time to do anything else or be a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I
You
don't
sound
know.
like you really need a break. I feel like you deserve a vacation by yourself somewhere. Gosh, or spa day, spa weekend.
I drink
Wow.
a lot of coffee.
Gosh. I mean, that just sounds tough. I mean, I never thought that someone working for a nonprofit would be working 60 to 80 hours a week.
Not everybody. I mean, it's not a requirement, but it's just the dedication that I put into it. And I mean, it really isn't a requirement. And they do, want you to have a great work-life balance. It's just that I'm really dedicated to my job.
Mm-hmm. And it's also because you're a supervisor also, right? As opposed to, just a regular like new attorney, I guess. Okay, so Brian is a pharmacist in the DC area. So he asks, in talking with some of my colleagues who work at nonprofits, the conversation of compensation usually comes up, specifically that it's a bit low relative to for-profits. Is that common or outlier?
Yeah.
I think it's very common, right?
It's true.
Nobody's getting rich working for legal aid.
No. And if you are, please let me know.
Yeah, what's the secret? There's something going on. Yeah, because isn't the starting salary something like 40 or 50,000?
Yeah, it's like 40.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, some people say the benefit is that some people do get that public interest loan forgiveness, but as Elysia told us, it didn't work out for her that way. So you can't really count on that. Yeah. But, but the pros, as she said, was that she got to get so much hands-on experience. Like the experience really can't be beat because you get nonstop client interaction and lots of responsibility and lots of courtroom time.
Yeah. And there are other benefits. I mean, we do get we get some other benefits. You get paid CLEs and do other things.
Mm-hmm. And you get paid vacation, or you get vacations, right? Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, if I take vacations, I get paid vacations.
Yeah. Okay. Do legal aids have lower turnover rate compared to big law?
don't know about that. I think that we do have a lot of long-term legal aid attorneys, and then we do have people that use it as a way to get experience and move on. So I couldn't even answer that. I think that it's both. I mean, people use legal aid as a stepping stool because, you get experience, really great experience, and then you can move on. But there are people that love it. I mean, it's a choice for me. I choose to be at legal aid, and it was the place where I did want to purposely go.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, well, they're very lucky to have someone so devoted like you are. Wow. Okay, so this is a more theoretical question. So Tony wants to know, does it happen in your experience that domestic violence victim blames themselves and they request a return to the abuser? Does the cycle abuse model hold up in practice?
yes, I mean, you see it so often, and you'll see people come back and ask that even when they get a domestic violence protective order, sometimes they'll ask to set that order aside so
Mhm.
that they can go back to their abuser. And it is a cycle. It's really difficult cycle to end. And with abuse doesn't stop the love that people have for people. So just because somebody goes to court, that doesn't sever love, and it doesn't sever that attachment. So it's really difficult for people to walk in there. It's really difficult for that to go on. And there are so many times that as an advocate, we have to coach people and help them and to walk them in there and to keep going with them, to tell them they're strong enough to do that and they're strong enough to walk away. But sometimes they still don't know. And then it takes them time after time after time to go through it and to be able to walk away. And, sometimes they just can't.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it must be really tough. Again, this is where being a counselor comes in handy. And it seems like you have a very patient personality to deal with those tough situations. Yeah. Do most legal aid paralegals end up going to law school? What do you say? Do you have paralegals at legal aid?
We
Okay.
do. And I love my paralegals. I don't think that I can say enough good things about my paralegals. And I wouldn't say that they do. Some they can. We support our paralegals in whatever capacity they want and encourage them to further their education. We encourage everyone to further their education. We offer tons of training. We love for people to get training. So, like, if my paralegal wanted to go to law school, I would absolutely support them. Um, but do they choose that? I don't see a lot of them that do.
Mhm. I see. Okay. Now, Brian, getting back to the compensation thing, what keeps you motivated to stay in nonprofits if that's the case, aside from the experience?
Um, I think it's just the other aspects of the job. Like, I just, I think I love helping people. I There's so many other things about the job. It's not about the compensation that really keeps me there. That is the one thing that doesn't keep me there.
Mhm.
It's everything else. There's so many times that the clients that you've saved someone, and there was a minor child that I was able to really connect with and help, and she was like, I really didn't have anyone else, and thank you. And she still calls me, and I look at some of the people that I've helped even as a volunteer for legal aid, and I've seen the lives that I've changed and how they've come back and said, I wasn't a complete person when I came there, and I wasn't able to take care of my family, and I wasn't able to take care of myself. And now I'm in a place where I can take care of my family and take care of my children. And getting out of those abusive situations and rebuilding their lives, it means a lot So seeing people move on, being able to become whole people, I think that means a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. And of course, plenty of people are miserable working in bigger law firms and they feel like they get no client contact. They never see the inside of a courtroom. They're pushing
Mhm.
around paper and just sitting at the computer nonstop. I mean, there's like pluses and minuses, like even if you make big bucks in the law, right? So, okay. Yeah, Free Elf says, I want to ask for advice for a fresh law grad who hasn't taken a bar exam yet. Can we start working in legal aid or should we wait for the bar exam first?
So you could volunteer, but we couldn't hire you to be a lawyer unless you were
Licensed.
licensed. Yeah. But
Mhm,
I mean, we do volunteers. Yeah.
mhm. Okay. Yeah, I have this wacky idea that later on when I retire, then, maybe I could just volunteer at legal aid or something just to keep my mind fresh and help out and feel like I'm doing something productive. Like, do you have that many volunteers? Because I thought there were so many people that wanted to volunteer that you guys were turning them away.
No, 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 we don't. I mean, we had some before the pandemic, and then there were so many people that didn't want to go into the courtrooms and things of that nature. And then we had lost a significant amount of volunteers. Now we're starting to build up some more volunteers. Um, but with the pandemic, it's just been a lot of people that did not want to go in, and it actually took a toll on our actual workforce with people leaving um, just our organization because people were so nervous about going to court. I mean, because, even when court shut down and other courtrooms shut down, we never shut down. I never stopped going to court.
Oh,
Never, I never got a chance to shut down, to take a break, to stop doing anything. The whole
that's
pandemic.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anyone in your office, I don't know if you can say this, but did anyone in the office catch COVID
No,
from
no.
all that courtroom running back and forth everywhere, meeting random people?
Luckily, that we didn't, and I was
Oh,
thankful. But it was really scary, and honestly, I did get really bad anxiety from going to court constantly. And I'll tell you, the first, like right after COVID, I had got such anxiety that I was almost late to court. It was like 9 o'clock, and I'm sitting here
oh.
thinking, should I take the elevator or should I take the stairs? I really
Mhm.
don't know what to do, but I just couldn't stop going to court. And I'm like, people still wanted to touch me and wanted
Ugh.
to hug you and stuff. And
Oh
I'm like,
God.
do you let them do that? Because they're so
Yeah.
vulnerable. And I'm like, I don't know what to do,
Mhm.
but I couldn't stop. And I was going to court like 3 times a week. And it was a lot on me. And I
Mhm.
lost a lot of staff because of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah, I mean, just thinking back before we had the vaccine and everything was so
Yes.
new and scary and people are dying all over, well, I mean, it's still happening, but, boy, those were scary times. So, I mean, that's amazing that, you still had to go to court and everything, and glad you didn't catch it though. Yeah. Tony asks, have you had any guides or mentors in your history as an attorney or any role models?
Yeah, I reach out to a lot of other attorneys. I reached out to judges. When I first started, I reached out to a local judge that was in the area when I first started, and now she's a superior court judge. But I used to cry a lot to judges, to attorneys, and now I do the same. I let other attorneys come to me. And I think it's very important to find people that you can go to and ask. So when people come to me, ask for anything, I always open the door. I always listen. I always let people come cry on my shoulder.
Mhm.
And I really think that's important because when I first started practicing, it was a while ago, and I felt so alone. It was before, social media was so prevalent. And then I was happy and fortunate that I did have a judge that I could go to as a role model. and that she would let me call her anytime. And just even during court, there were days that I felt like, hey, I couldn't do this. And she would just let me go in her office and just cry.
Oh,
So
geez. I mean, wow, that's incredible. Because normally, like, nobody would expect to be able to talk to a judge like that or to show your emotions or anything. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, you definitely found the rare role model or mentor who, you know, let you be yourself, where you could actually express your concerns. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay. So anything else you would like to add about people who are interested in working for legal aid?
Well, I just want to tell people that I think that you should really try to volunteer and do things and see what's out there, see what you like, because you never know. And just like me, you never know where you end up
Mhm.
and what you like to do. Because as I said, I thought I was going to end up being a business attorney and
Mhm.
doing that. And then when I did it, I found out it was boring. And this is what I like. I thought I didn't want to be in a courtroom and arguing cases, and I love it. And when I didn't do it and I got out of it, I missed it so much that I craved it. And when I got back into it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's refreshing and I love it and I missed it. And I
Yeah.
miss talking to the judges and I miss arguing my cases.
Mhm.
So, you really have to find it and go after it and go ask people. I've had hired interns or had interns come and I've let them come in my office just because they asked.
Mhm.
And I love that tenacity. And that's how I ended up getting my first internship. I
Mhm.
asked for it.
Oh, did you know anybody
He
when
was
you became an
I
intern?
asked Victor, he was my professor. I needed my internship and my first internship fell through, so I asked for it. And then
Yeah.
I got it and it led to a career for me. So, you
Mhm.
know, do that. Don't be afraid. Make your
Yeah.
connections.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the worst that can happen is you get rejected and they say, no, we're not hiring, or no, we hired somebody else. So, does legal aid hire every year? Like, is there a certain number of attorneys that they usually hire? Because I know there are multiple legal aids across
Yep.
the state, right?
They're always hiring. There's always open positions. Legal aid is hiring now.
Mhm.
So we're always hiring interns every summer. They're always looking for attorneys. There's always open positions throughout the state.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. Well, it's so nice to hear from you. I really appreciate your honesty, letting
Thank
us know that law school was not a cakewalk, because on YouTube, everybody is always making things seem like so much fun and exciting, like a day in the life of the law student and my vlog and my glamorous, cool life. And, that's not, to me, that's just like a fake manufactured, you know, false sense of reality because they want more people to watch them on YouTube. But, here we have real practicing attorneys that are on my show that are telling us, it's not going to be a piece of cake. It's going to be hard. You're going to have, if you can't pay for it all in cash or your family doesn't have the money, you are going to have a lot of debt when you graduate too. And that can continue to follow you for years during your legal career too. I'm so thankful to you for just being willing to tell everybody, what your real experience has been. Yeah, but it's just amazing that, you've made such a career working for legal aid and people are so lucky to have an attorney like you, to work on their behalf, you know. That's
Thank
really
you.
amazing.
Thank
So,
you for
yeah,
having me.
thank you guys. Thanks everybody for joining in. Yeah, so it's just about an hour, so I think we'll wind things up. Um, and Elysia, if you can stay on for a few more seconds so I could say goodbye to you, but I'll go
Sure.
ahead and say goodbye to the viewers out there.
Thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate
all
it.
for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care then. See you guys next week.